Hey, welcome to the podcast, Zach.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing good, brother. How are you today?
I'm pretty good.
So, I wanted to hop right into maybe your roots. So, with your whole creative journey, and even maybe if you want to get into it a little bit, we could even hop into like when you were younger. It's basically wherever you want to start.
Um, yeah. Um, my real writing journey started when I was about 12 years old, I'd say. Um, my grandmother, she had lupus, and she raised me for the first 12 years of my life, pretty much. Um, she was my mother figure. She did everything for me. She set me up, with morals, respect, and everything that you need to be a functioning member of society and just a good person generally. And she was one of the sweetest, most kind, most compassionate, most altruistic woman. She was just amazing. It was a shame that she suffered from that disease.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and about 25 days before my 12th birthday. Um, and this memory is crystal clear in my head. I mean, this isn't something that you would ever forget. I'd even say, like, not necessarily, I don't have PTSD, but it's definitely something that eats away at me a lot. And writing has helped me get through that a lot. But the day that she passed, I remember it, clear as if it happened yesterday. Um,
Right.
we were we were in the grocery store, and my grandfather he called, and my mother she started bursting into tears in the aisle, and that was already extremely hard to watch. You never want to see like your real mother cry, like as hard as she did.
Mm-hmm.
It was insane. She basically had a nervous breakdown there, and you know, then my heart sank. I knew what was coming because I knew she was sick, and they said that they were gonna have to pull the plug. She was suffering from internal bleeding, and so we drove to Pittsburgh as fast as we could. We got there. Um, that's probably the only thing I don't remember is the drive there because but I went in, you know, and this was the last time I'd ever see her,
Mm-hmm.
and I just remember holding her and saying, I love you, like just repeating it. She couldn't speak back, but like, I know she heard me and she was holding me, and back there was a I drew on the whiteboard for her to look at every day. It was a mountain, and there were birds flying in the back on the horizon, and there was a deer, and there were trees and bushes because I've always been obsessed with nature. I've never been that great at art, but after she passed away, I figured I'd start writing just how I felt and such, and eventually it grew into short stories or just my general emotions, how I felt, and once I once I reached high school, this was the point when literature became a huge part of my life. These classes we studied Shakespeare, we studied other authors, famous American books, The Catcher in the Rye,
Mm-hmm.
you know, To Kill a Mockingbird, The Great Gatsby, all those. It was, and I really enjoyed that. I genuinely enjoyed that, and I wanted to do something like that. And so I wrote for about 7 years now, but it's just been recently that I've gotten into poetry, and that's I have to attribute that to my senior year English teacher. He was a fantastic guy. Um, we had a project where we had to write a poem for class, and it was about something that really meant something to us, something that absolutely changed our lives, down to the very core of who we are. And I wrote about my girlfriend, and it's because I've been with her for about 3 years now, and since I've met her, she's been the single light in the journey of darkness that I've had to go through.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really, like, she's helped me out immensely. I credit I credit my love for writing, to the study of English, and just the language itself. I love words.
Mm-hmm.
I love wordplay. I love grammar. I love, I'm obsessed with semicolons myself.
Right.
But yeah, the senior year I wrote a Shakespearean sonnet, and that was the first real poem that I ever wrote, and that one really means a lot to me. And there's a few about my grandmother that mean a lot to me. And I love the way that I can use poetry to make people feel like not the exact same, but paint a picture in their head of just an image that they can get an emotion out of that's at least similar to what I felt. Something that they can picture for themselves and have for themselves, and be able to capture the same moments that I have, but in their own way.
Exactly. And life, I think that just what you said was incredibly sentimental and beautiful. And life is an incredibly dual experience. It's not about the happy moments. It's not about finding a happy ending. It's about understanding that there is that great duality in life. There is, there's hardship, there's struggle, there's suffering. All that stuff is just as real as the love, as the happiness, as all of that. And seeing the silver lining in it all, seeing it. I think that what you said, that story at the hospital, with the mountains in the background, it just, when I tune into that, it feels to me like that was that there was great meaning there. There was great love in the symbol. And I think that words do the same thing. And I think that art connects us. There is an encoding in our art. There is love in the art. There is truth in the art, because if you're a poet, which, like you said, only more recently did you start getting into poetry, it's a reflection of your internal state, because you can start expressing honestly. And when you're experiencing, like you said, you went through a rough childhood. When you're going through that, traumatic experience, when you're going through that darkness, it's really hard to talk about what you're feeling, and it's hard to express those things. But that you have, you're starting to feel behind the scenes, behind those things, the love in your life, when you can start expressing in that way. So I think my next question is, tell me more about your relationship and how that attributed to feeling that greater sense of purpose in your life.
Right. So my girlfriend, she's just been like, I can't even explain. She's been understanding. She's really the first person that, like, took my story that I gave to her, my raw story, like the first person that I really told everything to, and she accepted who I was for me, like, no matter how broken I was. She was I had my eyes on her since freshman year of high school. I mean, like, the moment I saw her, the appearance is obviously the first thing that draws you to the conversation. It's not always, unless you hear good things about a person. Generally, if you see somebody, it makes you want to talk to them and get to know them more. And I've been lucky enough that I've found somebody so early on in my life that I just click with. Somebody that has felt the same way that I do, but for so many different reasons, and has given me a broader understanding of what it means to feel. Because since my grandmother died, I mean, I was numb for a very long time. I genuinely didn't think I could feel anything anymore. I was pretty broken. But for the first time, you know, I found somebody that could explain to me that just because you feel numb now doesn't mean that you're not going to regain feeling. And she'd and explain to me that this is, you know, this is something, this is grieving, this is just how it is, but you got to realize that there's always something to look forward to. And we both very much look forward to the future. And that's always something that I've thought about, because no matter how bad any situation that I've ever been in, I've gotten out of it. I've overcome it. I've grown from it, and I've moved on. And my partner, she taught me that. And that's one of the most valuable lessons I've ever had. And I see a lot of my grandmother in her. I see a lot of the compassion. I see how much she cares for others and how much she cares for me. And it inspires me. She inspires me to be a better person, just like my grandmother did. And I think it's important to have somebody that, you know, they don't necessarily push you with what they like, you know, they don't push you, but just their presence pushes you. Just their energy, their, you know, the fact that you want to be with them makes you want to be better for them. And, you know, I feel like she's my other half. No matter what, you know, friends have come and go, but she's been by my side through everything that I've ever gone through. And so, yeah, it's a pretty fantastic relationship. I really have a lot of fun. We do, you know, we like to go out, you know, other than because Corona's been happening, we haven't been able to, but we love to see Pittsburgh. And I feel like I can travel with her, and I can do anything with her. I could travel, I could stay inside. It doesn't matter. We just kind of connect on another level, you know. And when I write poetry, sometimes, like, I like to write a lot of love poetry, essentially. And I write a lot of love poetry. I write a lot about the way the seasons change. I like space and such. But it all usually connects back to love. And this is the first time, like, that I've felt it in a very long time.
And honestly, having that relationship in your life is such a transformational thing. Every little nook and cranny, all the things you didn't want to look at, they all start coming up, and it starts putting that compassion to each of those little facets of your life. I have that in my relationship as well. And, you know, I was not the same person 3 years ago that I am now. And that's due to our relationship, due to the openness of her accepting me and accepting all of the things that I thought about myself weren't worthy and that weren't lovable. And yeah, I'm completely on your side here. I think a true relationship like you're talking about is incredibly just expansive and can completely change you as a person. So I was wondering with school, what are your plans for the future? I know in your bio you sent over to me that it said you want to be an author full time. Where would you want to go with that?
Well, see, I don't know much about, you know, publishing agencies or anything. But once I graduate college, because I love to write, and right now I love pursuing writing as a hobby, because at this point in my life, I'm seeking no monetary value out of it. In the future, I might, but the real thing is that I just enjoy writing, and that's it. I mean, in the future, yeah, I do want to be an author, just because I think that making money off of something you love doing makes it not work at all. But this degree is realistic, it's difficult to really genuinely blow up like a lot of authors, and books, they aren't. I really hate the term that it's a dying, art, like that literature is basically dying, because I completely disagree with that. I think that words are valuable. I think that they'll be around forever, and I'd rather write as a hobby than really chase it as somebody who's trying to capitalize on monetary value. But like, if I had that as a job, it'd be nice. So it's basically like, I'm gonna continue writing for the rest of my life and hope for the best. Hope that I get noticed by somebody somewhere. And if not, I'm still gonna have my writing. Like, if not, I still have my Instagram page. I still have all the friends that I've made from writing, people that I would have otherwise not met, because I wouldn't have ever, they would have never read my work. And that's actually really the main reason that I would want to be an author, is because I love talking to people. I love meeting people. I'm a very social person. I like to I would love to do book signings and stuff where I can shake people's hands and talk to them about my work, instead of where you see like other famous people where they might not have a conversation with somebody. I probably would, because I just like talking. That's about it. Like, but yeah, so I'm not very versed in how to get work out there through like publication and such. And I don't know if I'm like, I don't know if I would be able to balance school as well as like doing that and writing enough to self-publish and go through that process. Like, I know it's pretty easy, but at the same time, I would have to produce a lot, and I don't know if it would be as quality as I wanted. And that's the best part, I think, about using it as a hobby and just a way to express yourself, is that's more raw. I mean, and it's genuine, and I think that it comes out better when you really have time to process what you want to write and the emotion that you're trying to, express.
Exactly. And I think that I just want to let you know that publishing is definitely not dead. Paperback sales are way down as opposed to maybe like 20 years ago, but ebook sales up 400%. The books are still selling. The format has changed. Obviously, both of us love a good paperback. I mean, you want to.
Oh yeah, there's nothing better than flipping through some good old pages.
But literature is not dead. The publishing.
And that's why I hate that term.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it's inaccurate. I mean, just because it's evolving, it does not mean that it's dying.
You should be able to put your message out there, make an impact, and make money off of it, because your work inherently has value. So it's just coming to a point where that's happening organically. You're not forcing it. And I think that that's the problem that I think that you hit on really well. Most people are kind of forcing that process. They're forcing themselves. Maybe they're not, or maybe they're not quite in alignment with yet. But it takes time, and it takes surrender, and you got to let go. And if you're trying to rush that process of becoming a full-time author and somebody who's making a passive income that way, you can't do it unless you get really lucky. Unless you're J.K. Rowling, it's a process.
Yeah, right. It's like a lottery system, basically, unless you really work at it for a long time, and you grow over time. I mean, every time I flip through my notebooks filled with pages, I read old poems that I just don't like anymore, but like, they still had value at one point. But it, like, sometimes I just feel like I've grown out of even that writing, even, a couple months ago, or, as I learn new things, It's just that my writing seems to get better, and not not in a conceited way or
No.
anything. It's just that I'm growing. It's just you learn more, you get to experience more, and I really like that. And Charles Bukowski, he didn't get famous until he was about 50. So the guy was writing for quite a while. Nobody really
Right.
cared for him until eventually he kind of gave up on it and just wrote whatever he wanted, and then everybody listened to him, and that's when everybody wanted him. But even if it took me 30 years from now, I would never I genuinely, I don't think I'd ever be as cold as he was, because after everybody kind of shunned him from the light, he kind of shunned them. He didn't want to make friends, I guess. But no matter when, I'm a very, like, I love people, and I believe in peace, love, and respect, and like that's just, it sucks that everybody doesn't see through the poet's eyes, because I genuinely think that poetry really, it paints the world in a different picture that makes you want those things more once you realize like what's really out there, what really connects us, like how we're really all in this together.
Right. And being a poet, the biggest thing about it is being vulnerable, being able to say what's inside of you, unfiltered, and putting it out there. It can be prose, it can be rhyme, it can be freestyle, it can be any format. But all of those, as long as it's self-expression and honesty, then that's golden. It's like I said, it's about vulnerability. So it takes a lot for somebody to get to that point in their life where they're willing to be that vulnerable. Sometimes it happens sooner, like it did for you. You experience a lot of hardship. You experience a lot of suffering. You have these experiences that draws the poems out of you that you experience. Both. The thing is, most, I would say, poets don't really just write about, especially today I'm noticing more, aren't just writing about their traumas, aren't just writing about, oh, my girlfriend left me, life sucks. It's not
Right.
like that. It's about the duality of it. It's about, yes, this did happen to me, but it doesn't define me. And there are these other things that I'm feeling now that are in regards to me being able to express how I feel now and heal. And that process that's happening right now in the world, I think that's a new thing. I think it hasn't always been like that. There have always been poets, but they've been far and few between. But now, more and more collectively, people are opening up to the potential that, hey, I can do this. I can self-express. I can heal. I can release this stuff that was really hard for me to deal with. And that's happening on a global scale now, as opposed to before it was, far and few between in the age of Shakespeare, even Poe. There weren't poets at the scale that there are now.
Exactly. Right. And and a lot of them weren't even, educated enough to read. Like there was a time in history where we had like Shakespeare had plays, but he also had poetry. And if they didn't have printing like we do, they couldn't get their hands on anything. There was a Bible for like one town, just about. There was very few, like, things were handwritten, and it was a unique time where Shakespeare, he was able to put his poetry, he had it written, he had a lot of written poems, but he was able to incorporate a lot of them in his plays.
Right.
And that was really unique. And that was really unique for the time. That would even be unique today, because that's not common.
And that reminds me of blending that into today. We're all multifaceted. We're all people with so many different talents, so many assets, so many aspects to our purpose as well. So going into that, like, for example, I started out writing poetry, and now I'm doing a podcast. You started out writing short stories, now you're writing poetry. There's so many different aspects to us that can be expressed, that if we label ourselves as one thing and we get stuck in that one thing, it's so hard to find the new things, to find the new joys, to express in a different way that might serve people even more. So I think that it's very, I think that as poets, we're challenged to always be changing, and we're challenged to keep going deeper and deeper into who we are. And that's just a very expansive process.
It is. And speaking back on the how you mentioned duality earlier, I have there was a poem on my page called I think I called it "The Tree in Our Yard," and essentially what that was reading it at the surface, you would have had no idea, but that actually was about the passing of my grandmother. The pine tree that is depicted in that is.
Would you mind reading the
her.
poem?
She was. Let's see if I can find this. Yeah. Okay. 1 second. Let me find it. All right. We were blossoming. I only a small bud stemming from the branches of that old pine tree, and you the sturdy limb that made my life possible. But the tree grew weak, and the ground pushed the roots up. The dying wood would soon reach me. I'm shaking. I can't see. What is this? No, it can't be. You let me go. I hit the ground. Looking up, it's obvious that you saved my life once again. Though the old bark grew sick and you eventually tumbled, you gave me the opportunity to place my seed into the soil and grow my very own tree with my very own little pine cones to save.
I love it.
Yeah, so, there's the duality that, she passed away, but she gave way for me to do something great, for me to write, and for me to express an emotion that other people can feel, that they can relate to in a different way, and see that picture that I have, but in their own memories or their own, emotion, and just feel a similar way and just understand that, there's the sadness, she passed away, but I learned from it, and if it wasn't for her passing away, I would have never experienced, an all-time low like that. A point in my life where I was just numb. I wouldn't have experienced that. I would have never known what the warmth was in the world and how accepting the world can be in general, and just how, we can relate to each other. We just know each other, and I think that was a really good representation of that duality, is the fact that things die, but it gives way for new life.
Exactly. And going back into that, I'm not sure if I'm correct with the representation, but correct me if I'm wrong. She was holding you up, and then she's like, now it's your time to grow. Now it's your time to become your own, and it's time for you to express and to grow your own love, and to grow, like you said, little pine cones.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's, that's really what it was, is like it sucked. It really sucked losing somebody that, especially your mother figure, seeing her, like, I genuinely, I watched her gasp for her last breath of air, and it tore me apart. I couldn't see her like that, because that was the woman that took care of me. That was the woman that taught me everything I ever knew. But at the same time, it was almost as if her silence spoke volumes to me. It was almost as if she was saying, "You're ready. I've prepared you, and this is your final test. You have to learn." She lost her mother when she was very young too, and she turned out to be, one of the most compassionate people, and I think it happened again. It was just one of those situations where I was just too young, but the experience was just something that I needed to change me as a person and see, like, both sides in that duality.
Wow. So damn, dude. This is great stuff. I want to say that my grandmother also has lupus, and that is such a hard disease to navigate, and there's so much that you have to learn to be gentle, and you have to learn to be compassionate, because every moment every moment has to be taken by the moment, because 1 second they could be flaring up, and the next they could be feeling better. Every day is different. So I know that with lupus, and Elena and myself, we work with a client that has lupus as well, who's been through it all, who's been through to the ER 5,000 times, been feeding tube, not feeding tube, gone through feeling like they're crazy because their brain wasn't functioning in a coherent way. It's a disease that requires compassion, and it requires a certain amount of letting go so that you can actually function in your life. And I think from what I feel and from what you've told me, that she was the perfect person to teach you those morals, teach you those ethics, because she had let go of so much of who she thought she was supposed to be, of who she was supposed to become, and she let herself just be present with it all. And from that, like you said, silence. From that silence comes compassion. From that silence comes love. From that silence, from that true nature, comes all of these aspects that she bequeathed to you. It's just very powerful. It's very powerful because to have a person like that so early in your life that was so close to you, uh, even through all the pain, through the loss, it's such a great teacher, and it instilled in you such a great love.
Yeah, yeah. It's I really think that I started seeing the world more through her eyes as she did, and how she understood that there's always going to be bad things in the world, but there's always going to be a bright side to it. There's always going to be something to look forward to, or and they say you shouldn't dwell on the past, but it's nice to reminisce. And it's nice to think back about how great things were whenever it's not going so great now. Or how great, and that gives you hope that things are going to be better in the future too. And that's what made me really think about that. And my girlfriend, she's the one that really helped me see that. But it wasn't, like, without my grandmother passing away, I would have never been able to have that experience and see that. And that's because there was the point in my life where I didn't think, I would feel anything. But my girlfriend, she showed me it's okay. You can, because I would dwell on the past rather than reminisce about how good things were and how good things could be. Because I think that that's really important. That difference of that word, dwell or reminisce. If I dwelled on the past, thinking about how she passed away and everything, but I wasn't thinking about how great of a job she did as a parent when she was raising me, and how great my childhood was, before that, when I was completely blind to her being sick when things were good, because she was able to really, like, mask her pain so that, she could show me happiness. And it was really nice that we got to do a lot of things together and stuff, and I always look back at those good memories, and I just think forward that I'm going to have the opportunity to do the same thing and provide, my children or my grandchildren with the same experiences that I had, and teach them the same values in life. And hopefully, I hope that I can do it without, having to teach them the hard way, like I had to
Right.
learn and like my grandmother had to learn. But, regardless of how it happens, I'm just happy that I might have the opportunity to put more people like that on the earth, and even communicate my message to other people about how important it is to teach these values to kids, and teach them how important it is to, like, have respect for each other, and understand that we're all connected to the core. We all work together, and we don't function if we don't work together. It's just not how we're wired. You know, humans are meant to communicate with each other. We're meant to work together. We're meant to move on as a society and grow and learn things and evolve.
I love that. And we serve so that others can serve. We give ourselves fully so that others can give themselves fully. It's more than lead by example. It's lead by being. By being who you genuinely are, you give somebody else the potential to be who they genuinely are so that they can do the same for another. And obviously, as we see in the world today, fear spreads like wildfire. It's not even about a virus. It's about the media. It's about fear spreading. It's about an idea. But the same is true of love, and the same is true of service, and the same is true of kindness. And all of those aspects of self, they can spread like wildfire as well. And in fact, they do. And it's only an allowance. It's only in, like you said, stop dwelling on the negative in your past, because your past is whole. It's not just negative. There was so much positive, and there was so much love that can be drawn from. And all of that exists here in this moment as well. And that can be shared and expressed in any way that you're allowed, in any way that you're attuned to. And not everybody's going to do it in the same way. You know, I mean, you're a writer. I mean, how do you express most genuinely? And it's through your writing and through your voice. Some people, it's through their music. So everybody has their own way of expressing that conduit of openness and love. But I think the most important thing that I'm getting at here is everybody has it. There's not one person alive who doesn't have the capacity to open up to it and to spread it and serve in their own way.
Yeah, and I think that that's also really important, is that people really need to chase their passion, because what your passion is really, I mean, it's the most thing that's valuable to you. And if you can provide the best thing that you can provide, then you're giving it all you can to society. And that's really important. I think that, like you said, music and art, and even right now, getting back like to the duality of all this and everything, is that this really has shown people how important our workers are, the essential workers, the core workers. And everybody's important, but mainly like these people that are going out on the front lines, and we're showing them so much support, holding signs, you know, yelling and, you know, cheering for them, clapping for them, buying them food and such. And I think that that's really great. Like, I think that that's something that people needed to see, is that they needed to see that these people are here all the time, and now they're finally getting the light. And it's unfortunate circumstances, but they're finally getting the light. And it's the light that they deserve, the recognition that they deserve for being the heroes that they are. And the heroes that everybody is for keeping each other entertained during this as well. Like, for example, you know, art, poetry, writing, you know, TV shows are still being released that they've already had pre-recorded. And, you know, they're releasing different things. Movies are going on, you know, movies that you wouldn't expect are being added to websites and such, you know, like they're expanding more, trying to help, you know, and this is a great time for art in all forms, no matter what your niche is. Like, it's, you know, it's fantastic that we're finally learning that we need to praise the people for what they're amazing at, and how they can contribute to society. That's really how we're all connected, and we really enjoy the work of others. We really do. And that's another key part of communication. It's communication even without
Exactly.
words
We've lived in a
sometimes.
society that's top heavy. We lived in a society where power was at the top, and the bottom, it was nowhere to be found. But in truth, and in a true reality, the voice of the many is what matters. It's what matters, to have the collective in control and spreading that true awareness that you're saying. Going into what's happening right now, we can definitely see that division, and we can see that, oh my God, it's just more apparent. It's always been true, but it's just more apparent that oh my God, we really don't have a society in which the respect and there's respect and intention going to the lower part of society that actually supports the top part. The top part still controls the bottom part. But I think that it's unraveling in a way in which, like you said, the light is being put to the part of society that actually deserves the recognition, deserves the respect, deserves to be taken care of. And it's all this shadow that's coming up is actually coming up so that it can be reknown and reseen, and so that the bridge between the two, the power gap, the separation, the disconnection, doesn't have to exist anymore. But in the process, it looks pretty terrifying. It looks pretty unsettling.
It does, yeah. And another like really important part about this is, I mean, this is it's putting us in a position where mortality is right in our face, and we can't look away from it because it's happening all around us. I mean, even though we might not be the ones who die, it's still all around us, and our own mortality is looking back at us in our face, and we have to face it. We can't go anywhere around it right now. And I think that that's one of the lessons that I learned when my grandmother passed away, that people are starting to recognize and see the same way that I did. They're starting to understand that that final goodbye is really tough, and like nobody should have to experience that, and we need to support the people that are risking their lives because they might have to tell their family goodbye one last time. And you might lose a family member, and sometimes you can't even say goodbye before it's too late. And that's really tough, and that's something that like a lot of people that are healthy don't understand. They like right now I'm with my grandfather. Through this pandemic, I've been with him. He has like COPD and other breathing problems and stuff. So I've been here supporting him, and it's tough because there's just people, they protest to reopen, and I understand the economy is extremely important, and a recession is terrible, but it's just that there's so many people in the United States that are at risk. We've had a lot of smokers in our past, and a lot of people with breathing problems in general that are just born with breathing problems, and a lot of people that I listened to the last podcast that you had, and he was talking about how America. You guys were talking about how America, we have a lot of diabetes and a lot of underlying conditions because of obesity and such, and it's just that a lot of people don't know what that final farewell feels like. They really just don't understand, and this is making them face that. And I think it's unique how this is what's really connecting us in such a time. And I look back, and the last major pandemic was
Spanish
in like
flu,
1918
Spanish influenza.
to like 1920. Yeah, but after that, there was a time period in the United States considered the Roaring Twenties. This was a groundbreaking time, and this is the time that everybody was pretty much connected in a unique way. And I'm looking forward to the future because this could be the same thing. This could be shortly after this. There could be an economic boom. There could be, there's probably gonna be,
Yeah,
more connection between people. We're gonna finally feel great again once this is all really calming down, and we might have another, fantastic set of another decade. We might have like great years. And I think it's really important to look forward to that by looking back at the past and how things have been in the past and how
exactly.
things have
And
worked out.
intuitively, I feel that as well. I feel that all of this stuff is happening, all of this stuff is coming up, so that we can have that brighter future, so that we can experience something different. And the truth is, we've been doing things the same way for a very, very long time as a society, and a lot of that stuff now has been halted, and things are changing. and things are not changing for the worse. They're changing for the better. They're changing in a way that influences people in a more positive way, in a way that promotes the highest good of all, and not just putting money and power in the hands of the few. The shift, obviously, I think it takes time, and I think that it's going to take some more time. But as time goes by, I think in the world we're going to notice more and more how this time actually affected the world and how things have shifted in a positive direction, and how people actually have more rights. People's voices are heard more. People's self-expression is louder, and the voice of fear is listened to less, and the voice of love is listened to more. And it's when a society changes like this, it happens in ripples, and it happens breadcrumb by breadcrumb. But those breadcrumbs are slowly and surely peeling away back the layers of what things were to reveal what they actually are. With
Right.
with what do you see in the future? What what would you like to see? What would you like to see things or may I say it like this? Intuitively, what do you feel? What do you feel about the future? What do you feel is coming?
So so I think I don't know if you've ever gone to like a BP gas station or anything and seen that they had the Ecofuel that it's fuel that's made from algae. It's biofuel. It's this is cutting edge. This is new technology. Whenever this all hit, there was a you know people stopped traveling, and gas prices fell, and not only that, but the trade of oil and such is so unreliable with all the trade wars, the tariffs and such. I think that in the future, because of how unreliable our travel is, I think that an inexpensive fuel like algae-based fuel, I think I would like to see that grow into something more than what it is right now, more than just an option, maybe a point where we can switch over and do that. Because I mean, this whole time that this has been happening, travel's been down, pollution has been down, and the earth was beginning to heal. And I'm afraid that we might just go right back into what we were doing before and mess things up again. But we should look at this as an opportunity, like, this is already kickstarting something in the earth.
Right.
Maybe we should try to accelerate that instead of go back. Maybe we should try to switch over to biofuel, where it's going to be much better for the environment. And I'm excited to see like new ideas too, because this has been such a creative time for everybody, and I'm excited to see what comes out of this, what new ideas people have for
And I think we're finding that the earth
anything.
can heal much, much faster than we ever dreamt it could. If And I think that the timelines that
Right.
scientists had before about, the earth can't heal. The earth is an organism. The earth as a whole functions as one, as a whole. It has the capacity to heal, but it can't be damaged at such a rapid pace. And I definitely feel like there has been a lot of awareness raised as to, whoa, like look at the impact even a pandemic and lockdown can have on the health of the earth in a positive way. What happens if everybody moves forward with that awareness? Just like you, I feel a little pessimistic as well, but I feel like more than not, there's going to be more people that do move forward in that way with that awareness. But there is also going to be the same people who try and go back to quote unquote normal. But there's going to be a new normal,
Right.
and that new normal is going to keep on gaining that momentum that it deserves. So, yeah, there's both. Like we said earlier in the episode, we keep coming back. So I got to name the episode something with duality. But there is going to be the duality there. There is going to be the people that are leaning more towards, no, I want to go back to normal. I want to forget everything that ever happened. But there's also going to be the people who are just like, I learned my lesson. I learned the lesson of these times, and I'm going to move forward with respect and reverence for the earth.
Yeah, and I think that that's really important too. Is it's been amazing seeing how much awareness has been raised for the earth and how many people are speaking up for it because it doesn't have a voice for itself, and how important it is, like you said, to realize that the earth can heal, and we can even accelerate the earth healing. You know, we can do things to help the earth get back to the way that it needs to be. Over time, the glaciers are obviously going to melt over time. We can't really preserve that. That's genuinely something that's out of our hands. But there's no need for us to accelerate it. The oceans are becoming too salty. It's killing a lot of species of animals. It's also destroying coral reefs, which are really important because 2/3 of our oxygen comes from the ocean. So I think I've seen some groups that some like charitable groups that go out and they replant coral for the coral reefs to try to help it grow, and I think that really like helping reduce the pollution and move on towards a more green movement is going to be really important in bringing that life back. I mean, even if we can slow down the inevitable, it's just that we need to do everything that we can. And I think that it's been fantastic that people are realizing that we can do everything that we can. We have no reason not to.
Sometimes it takes a hard reset, just like we've experienced, to get us in that state of mind where we... I talk about this a lot, and maybe you heard it on the other podcast as well. But how I see these times as well is when you have to sit in place, when you have to go into lockdown, you have to sit with all of the things that you were coping with before, that you were going to and fro and avoiding before. And that's a powerful thing, because that through that act of sitting with those things, through that being locked down in place with those things, you heal. And people are going to be coming out of their homes different, accelerated. Obviously, we see the duality in that as well, because sadly, domestic violence has been rising in the world. And on that end of things, you see the nastiness that people have been coping with coming up and projecting itself. And that's awful.
It is. Yeah, that is terrible. I really and that's another thing is a lot of people don't even know how to cope with these things. And I think when I found writing, like, that was really important to me. That was a way for me to cope with everything that I've been dealing with. And even during this quarantine, like, I've heard you say that on the other podcasts, and it really hit home whenever you said that. When I heard it for the first time, when I heard you say that before this, it just really hit home to me because, I've spent nights, staying up thinking about, my past and my grandmother and other things that are just out of my hands that I couldn't control, but had a major effect on me.
Right.
And it, drives me crazy. Things that you wish that you could have stopped, but you didn't, or couldn't in some cases. And it's really hard to deal with that sometimes. And like you said, writing is your most vulnerable point. And that's really key to letting it out, is that you can express it in a way where you're not really incriminating yourself. You're just giving out the emotion, the sadness, the real feeling, the raw feeling that you are, and you can get it out and process it through comparisons as well. Like, you can use like I did with the pine tree, you can use imagery and such and convey the same message, but without really having to go through the same pain. You can make it beautiful. You can make it something different. And I think writing gives you a time to slow down and really write down what's on your mind, but you can do it in a creative way. And it's really disgusting. Domestic violence is on the rise, and it's sad though that people just don't know how to handle themselves. It's really sad that they haven't been taught how to handle themselves, or haven't had to really, maybe
That's
go
usually
through
the
anything,
case,
or
I
maybe they
think.
went through too
I think that
much,
people
and
are carrying so much that it just projects. What can they do? It has to either be looked at and healed, or it projects. And when you put somebody in a situation where they can't cope with it in the same way anymore, then it projects and people get hurt. And looking at it, like we said, it's awful, but it's also raising awareness to people having these problems, having these internal. It's raising awareness that a lot of people have problems, and that yes,
rather than it being a hush-hush
yes,
conversation, it's actually being talked about now, and that's really important. Same thing with with rape and stuff in the Me Too movement and such. I mean, I know that there have been false accusations that have ruined men's lives, but the Me Too movement is really important. It really is, and we need to draw light to that conversation, and
exactly.
people need to talk
Exactly.
about
And
these
the
things.
people that are
These things need to
experiencing this
come
right now,
out.
the abusers, these are the people that never learned how to talk about their problems. These are the people that kept it all in and now they're projecting it. And these are the people that need help. Obviously, it's important. It's very important that they reach out before they do anything. But these are the people in these times that require that awareness, require that love, require that compassion, because they have an internal suffering that's very different than a surface level suffering that we may see in others in the world. And uh, I recommend that. I mean, who knows who's listening, but I recommend that if there's anybody who's going through internal problems listening, reach out, seek help, seek somebody to talk to, seek a different awareness, seek a different perspective, and know that you're not alone, because every single person that is going through this time right now is experiencing a great shift. They're experiencing a new reality that they've never experienced before. So know that everybody's being challenged, not just the little people. Every single person is being challenged. So just yeah, and I think that's where we're going to wrap it up, Zach. Man, it was completely awesome talking to you. This podcast was killer. Thank you so much.
All right,
Where
man.
can
Yeah,
people find
no
you?
problem. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. You can find me at fergspoetry on Instagram. It's FERGSPOETRY.
Awesome, man. You have a good one.